Well, it's another edition of the Blue White Breakdown, and we've got another special guest. We've been having heavy hitters on here. Brett McMurphy 2 weeks ago, Dennis Dodd last week, and this week, live from Los Angeles from the media room at the U.S. Open, Brendan Quinn from The Athletic. Brendan, it's raining here, which is really, really good because it didn't rain for 6.5 weeks, but it never rains in Southern California. What's it like? What's the course like? Nothing like 2018, I hope.
The course is unreal. This is the one of the big stories this week is, LA Country Club opening its doors. It's this classic, highly private, very complicated history of, kind of like Augusta, right? It's this place that's like representative of like the best parts of golf and then all the worst parts
The
of golf
super rich is what you're
too.
talking about. It's Beverly Hills.
Super rich, misogyny, racism, all kinds of stuff. And then at the same time, you walk this golf course, and your head is just spinning at the topography, the creativity of the design, the views. Like I've walked all 18 by now. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, and the thing that strikes me the most is it's these diving hills and these sweeping kind of fairways that go from right to left that you don't even know how you would hold it. Like there are a lot of holes where you're looking at them and you say, I don't even know where you could place the ball to hold the fairway and things like that. And some of the possibilities of pin
as
positions.
as my old
Yeah.
buddy Roxanne Moses said to me when I was disparaging women's basketball one time. She just interrupted in the office and said, Dave, it's not for you. And I'm thinking this course is probably not for the average hack. Oh, what kind of
No.
golf are you? You're a pretty good golfer, right? You're decent. What are you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm like right now I'm about a 12. I've been as low as, 7, 8, but my back and my age and living in Michigan it's a bad combination for, keeping a sustained level of play. So
Get out of
yeah,
Michigan. It's
yeah.
no
I
place
mean,
to live.
I would love the challenge. I would love to come out here and, see what number would go up, but it really wouldn't matter. It's just the opportunity to be out here and see a place that has been so kind of reclusive, really. It's even like more closed up than in Augusta and like a Pine Valley. It's really, really
Yeah.
shut off from the rest of the world.
When I grew up in Columbus, there was a place like that where that was very exclusive, and they tried to make it that way. It was not Muirfield.
Scioto?
No, none of those. It was called the Golf Club. It was super exclusive, and it was invitation only, like this place, which sounds funny in northeastern Columbus, Ohio, but that's what they were trying to promote because, the super rich love that kind of stuff. Anyway,
there's a couple of those in Columbus because like Double Eagle.
Well, I don't know anymore. I mean, I've been away for 34 years.
But anyway, I'm pretty sure people don't care about this.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's well, it is part and parcel of what exclusivity is, which is part of golf. And I think this is what I want to ask you. More and more, I just feel like these guys, and this is true in a lot of sports, but especially in golf. When I grew up, it was Arnie and Trevino and guys who may not have been accessible, but they came from modest means and they looked accessible. When I look at Brooks Koepka, and maybe I'm wrong, you tell me if I'm wrong, I just see a pampered, petulant, kind of self-satisfied doofus who's just basically a simpleton and has nothing to say and acts like that's okay. He reminds me of Letterman used to say there were guests who didn't try, that just him off more than anything else. Brooks Koepka reminds me of one of those guys. So tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, that's his personality. Yes, I think he's probably a touch smarter than people give him credit for, but that's the reason that we don't give him credit for it is because he actively wants to be seen as the person that you are describing. That he is this, he wants to be a jock. He's too cool to be a golfer in his mind, and that's always been the case. But the thing is, like,
but why is
work wise? Work wise, though, as a player, like I, he likes to act like he doesn't try. That's his whole shtick. But like, he cares immensely about winning majors. Um, I think he's an unbelievable competitor. I mean, I think his arrogance is a tool of kind of he's like I don't know if it's like an ambivalence of like of just how he kind of is able to model himself versus like the common structure of golf that like he just sees himself as like disassociated from it,
Well,
and that he's just out there to win these events, and he does though. He's got
do you
five
think,
majors, might have
but
six.
Brendan, do you think that's good for the game? I mean, even Jack and
I don't.
Jack, I went to
I mean,
Jack's high
I
school.
don't think Brooks
Jack and I
Koepka
went to
gives
the
a shit.
same. Jack and I went to the same high school, and
Uh-huh.
Jack could not be. I can't think of a guy who's had more access to more places and people and has less to say than Jack Nicklaus. He's just basically a simpleton. But even Jack tried to
Mm.
promote the game. He tried to promote golf and tried to be as accessible as his personality allowed him to be. This guy just looks like he's obtuse all the time, and I don't think that's good
Mm.
for the game. And I think the game needs somebody like Trevino. I'm not asking for the world, but somebody who's got a personality that's out there, that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, but I think like me personally, like I don't care particularly about players' responsibilities of promoting the game. Like I just think that is like so far gone in this era of golf. All of these men, and on the women's side, a lot of these women are just they're all individual businesses. Okay, and it they operate with six people, seven people around them at all
mm,
times, from trainers to swing coaches to agents to publicists. And they all tell them that they're the greatest in the world. And they all tell them that they're special. And they have basically had that since they were teenagers. And like these are the people that we're dealing with. So like there is no real world of creating this character that you're talking about. That of this this bootstrapping, I'm out here for the good of the game. Like that is just not happening. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like it just doesn't exist in this era. So I think there's guys who want to talk about doing the right thing and all that, and that's well and good. And I don't think everyone here is a bad person by any means. I think a lot of them are interesting in their own way. I find John Rahm to be an extremely interesting person. Patrick Cantlay comes off a certain way, but if you have like a private conversation with Patrick Cantlay that he's engaged in, he's a pretty smart dude. And he can be really interesting, but he just comes off as an absolute wet blanket in person because of his face. Looks like it's kind of melting off, and he, just looks tired at all times. But he's an interesting guy sometimes.
I guess I'm asking for Michael Block, and that was what was so fun about Michael Block.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe a qualifier will be in the top 10 for you this week.
Maybe.
There's an Uber driver playing in this tournament this week. It is the
Tell
beauty
us.
of the U.S. Open is that it is open, and if you get your game together, Dave, you can come qualify next year.
So we
Go
could
play at Pinehurst.
could we have a Roy McAvoy anymore? Is that even possible? Was it ever possible? Was it just a story, a Ron Shelton story?
Yeah, I don't really see that happening.
So there's no Michael Block in this match. Where do you see
No.
this tour now as far as its future? Now that Liv and PGA are together, what do you see happening? Do you see the growth of the game? All these guys are talking about, I just want to grow the game, and this will be growing the game, which I think is bullshit. But what do you think?
Well, the PGA Tour in and of itself is still for you know the immediate future and probably beyond that. It's still going to basically function as what we know it to be. It is its own kind of entity in this. The what a lot of people have. I feel like a lot of people are very confused about what's actually going on business wise in this recent deal and the formation and the agreement between the Public Investment Fund and the PGA Tour. They're creating a new entity, and it's going to be a shared. They're sharing kind of commercial interest, and that's what the Saudi money is going into. About 2 to 3 billion from the Public Investment Fund is going into that, and that'll kind of house the commercial businesses of the PGA Tour, DP, World Tour, and what is and may soon no longer be Live Golf. I don't think Live survives this, so I think there's gonna be some road back for those players. I think it's going to be a not pleasant one for them, but I do think that will play out that way, and the tour itself is going to, I think, become more global. I think the lesson was learned of giving proper attention to Australia, that there should be an Australian swing, and I think there's going to obviously be a Saudi swing. There's no question about that. And these are the things you're going to see in 10 years, that I think it's going to become this more global entity, and you're going to see elevated events that I think are spread possibly across the world. And, this isn't happening next year or maybe even by 2029 or 30, but I think that's where this is heading in the biggest picture. Golf has kind of been this oddly regional by the global standard game. And I think that is going to go away in time.
You watch telecasts now, and they still, when he was playing, they still followed Tiger Woods because he's this magnetic figure that I don't see how they can possibly replace. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Does another, all-timer come around at some point? Maybe. And, that shifts the conversation. I'm sure kind of in your, when you were growing up and Jack was, either winning or finishing second in every single major, there had to be the thought that this would never be, no one else like this will ever come around, and how does the game replace it? And there was a void, I believe. I mean, it's a little bit before my time. When Tiger won in '97 at Augusta, I was in 8th grade. So but that gap between Jack and then, I'm sure there had to be that void of where is the great one?
It was Seve and the Shark and those guys. But
Norman wasn't collecting majors
Yeah, but they had when Jack was big, he still didn't have any personality. People actually preferred Arnie. They preferred Trevino, and Jack was almost like a foil to them. That a lot of people like to see him fail because he was this colossus that was so good and so much better than everybody else. That was his position. Tiger was not that. I think everyone rooted for Tiger, don't you think? Even in his failure, they rooted for him.
Yeah, I mean, Tiger was unreplicable at both in talent and what he represented at the time. That the fact that he was someone who looked different, and it was at a time when the game and really society was kind of evolving into a different, version of itself. To kind of see this, you go back and you read the stuff, which I do often, that was written in that span from about 96 to 2001 about everyone trying to understand what it was something. Unbelievable.
I just went back and watched the 97 Masters a couple of weeks ago just to watch the last few holes and him walking up there. I mean, it was one of the great moments in the history of sport. And so I've been trying to put my finger on why people rooted for him, because they did root for him. It was not like he was this magnetic personality, but there was something really charismatic about his presence. And I still can't quite put my finger on it.
And I think it was his game. I think it was the way he played the game, the shots he attempted. He didn't play it safe. He not only tried, but he executed just, the most challenging shots. And he just did stuff no one had ever seen.
People loved it.
And we forget now that the distance that he was producing at that time was unheard of. Just piping, 295 3 woods and getting home in 2 on par 5s that no one had ever considered going for, really, and he was just,
yeah. And he changed the
you know,
way
and
he changed the way golfers worked out. I mean, I also watched Tin Cup probably a year ago for the first time in years. And you've got a lot of cameos of guys like Craig Stadler. There were no more Craig Stadlers after the era of Tiger. The kind of doughy guys that just ended right away. He changed that.
So, and for anyone listening, I highly recommend going back and reading Charlie Pierce's piece on Tiger when he broke out. It was it was in Esquire, and it was called "The Man, Amen" is the headline, and it is one of the most prescient pieces of writing ever. Charlie called all of it. He predicted everything that happened. It is unbelievable to read in hindsight.
I'll go back and read that now. Yeah.
But to your original question, does the game need someone like that to come around? I personally don't think so. And now I'm a little bit in the silo of I'm at every major. I'm at a number of tournaments a year. I consume a lot of golf content. I feel like the top 20 in the world are talented enough that together, the competition of relative equals, I find interesting. The problem is that doesn't really permeate, sports, and it does not, that it will not lead Sports Center that Scotty Scheffler wins a second major.
It's not,
it'll be a big deal, but it won't be the big thing. It won't be, back when Tiger was on the cover of SI 3 times a year, and it was just this thing you couldn't talk about anything other than it. Like, the thing is, I think I'm probably drawn to say the game doesn't need it because I don't see it happening. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a moot point in my mind. It's just that the best players in the world are so good that I think it's still pretty compelling. And there's just, I don't think there is, maybe there's an 11-year-old out there somewhere, but we probably would have known it. But Rose Zhang on the women's side might end up being, like the generational talent that just kind of becomes a fascination at that level. It'd be great for women's golf, and I hope that happens. And I wrote a long piece on Rose recently where I'm fascinated by her genius and by the kind of inner workings of what I think is like what an actual prodigy is.
I guess what I'm saying is that I am a typical casual golf follower. I'm the kind of guy who will tune into the majors, but not anything else. Maybe golf doesn't need me, but that's what's missing with your Scotty Scheffler point. Those guys are not going to attract me in, and there needs to be one. So to attract me, but maybe they don't need me anyway. I don't want to let go.
Last point I'll make here is that the PGA Tour and professional golf isn't golf. That's what makes it a unique sport. Golf is golf. You can play it and not give 2 flying shits about who is the best player in the world is. You can go play. I can play, right? And that's kind of the beauty of the game, is that if you want to be interested in watching the majors, that's great. But you don't have to watch the majors to still enjoy the game. And, a lot of sports aren't exactly like that. Like, I don't have 8 guys to go play baseball with against another group of 9 40-year-old dudes. Like, it's just like, yes, you can join leagues and stuff like that, but I think golf is just inherently a playing sport more than a viewing sport.
I don't want to let you go without getting a little into college basketball, even though it's June, because that's your other
I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea what the hell's going on, but go.
The Athletic. I know I'm getting old because I always think of you as a college kid at St. Joe's. In fact, you still kind of say golf. You don't really say golf, although it's changing from all those years in Michigan. But I'm not going to ask you where you think college athletics is going. I'm going to ask you, do you think it's okay because I think NIL is great, and I kind of love the Wild West part of it. I love the chaos, and I think it's been a long time coming. And while I've got some opinions on how they can put a lid on this with maybe a collective bargaining agreement, a players union, the two SEC and Big Ten coming together and deciding on how to put a lid on it, because you could do that with a players union and a CBU, a CBA. Where do you have a problem with the portal and NIL per se? I mean, you covered the Hunter Dickinson thing, which was, the worst kind of example of what people hate about it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things like it feels not gross, but you're just like, what are we doing here? Like, what the hell kind of way is this to do anything?
It's
and
not what we're used to.
It's classic NCAA. They kick the can down the road, can down the road. We all knew it was inevitable, and then the courts were like, sorry, you have to let Americans earn money in America. What the hell is this model, and why was it ever created this way? And yeah, so they kicked the can down the road on the transfer portal and NIL, and of course, they ended up converging at once, and that is what you've seen in college sports for the last 2 years, is the fact that there were these two gargantuan things that the NCAA refused to budge on, refused to acknowledge the reality that was coming, and instead legislated and just add more rules or whatever. And boom, they happen at once, and now you get this mess. And I hope we don't lose college sports fans, because there are people that want to root for the name on the front of the jersey, the school that means a lot to them emotionally, and that it will be hard for a lot of people to come to the first game or the spring game and be like, who are these guys? And go to the first game of the football season and not know 70% of the roster, or go to the first basketball game and be like, I didn't know these kids were, it's going to be hard for a lot of people. So I think there do need to be guardrails of some kind. And I hate that word, but there needs to be there needs to be more functionality into how this works, and more transparency,
and
the only way that is available, how it's moving, and healthcare for these athletes.
And the only way that happens is with a players union, because they have to come to an agreement. You agree with that?
100%.
Okay, all right. I think we're
So for me, where I'm at on college sports right now is I never particularly cared about college football to a high degree. I enjoy watching.
Well, you went to St. Joe's.
As a college basketball guy, though, the thing I've always said is, my passion for college hoops will always be there until, if or when, the power conferences mess with the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
If there's ever a breakaway.
Yes.
If the NCAA tournament is not what the size of it, I don't particularly care. But the second you take out St. Joe's, St. Peter's, UMBC, I'm out. That's when it's over, because now that's not college basketball in my definition of it. As a guy born in 1982 who went to one of those types of schools. I love the fact I actually think St. Joe's going to be pretty good this year. Like, they could be sneaky good. They got a lot coming back, and there is a good feeling of hey man, maybe they can get back in the NCAA tournament. I was a junior in Jameer's year, and it was the best. It was the best, and that's, to me, is what college basketball is.
Well, if Greg Sankey and his boys get their way,
these mongrels are going to destroy and try to sap every penny and say all of it for us, none of it for you. We need to finance football. We need to buy a backup guard for the basketball team. We need more money from the NCAA tournament.
I really don't think they care. I don't think they give a damn about.
I don't think they care.
Tournament. They are football people, and they're going to make football decisions. And I do care about the size of it, because if you see 96, you're going to have those low and mid majors pairing off against each other in the opening round and killing each other off. And 96 will kill it. It'll be the same thing. So anyway, we've overstepped our time limit, I believe. You've got other things to do. What's going on in Los Angeles today? Is it just interviews? I was scolded by you gently that there's no pro-am at the US
That was
Open.
that was a preposterous question. What day is the pro-am at the US Open?
That's
not
what
a
I
thing.
know. Yeah.
So yeah, what's going on today? There's a USGA press conference where they'll be asked, I'm sure, about rolling back the ball and distance concerns in the game. And they'll be asked about the PGA Tour deal with the Public Investment Fund. And Mike Wan is going to, who's an extremely talented public speaker, will, I'm sure, say a lot without saying anything. And then I'm playing Rustic Canyon at 3:30 this afternoon.
Oh my
About
goodness.
45 minutes north of town. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But not that course. Brendan, you're one of the 3 or 4 reasons that I subscribe to The Athletic.
There's way more talented writers than that your listeners should be reading.
No, there aren't. No, you're one of the
3 or 4 people.
You're one of the 3 or 4 best there, and that's why I subscribe.
That's more well said.
Well, you know, whatever. That's you and Dean O'Neill and a couple other people are the reason. I wish you well, and thanks for being on. I know it's a challenging week for you, and have a great golf season.